Friday morning, like 12:40 over here, which means I just woke up like half an hour ago from working night shift yesterday, and I've been wanting to make this chashu recipe that Cassie Jumpel and I basically found on Instagram from this really cool food blogger that we follow. She does a lot of like Chinese recipes, baked goods, all that really good stuff. So I am starting to do that today. I bought the meat from Whole Foods a couple days ago. I marinated it overnight while I was at work. I made the rice before I went to bed this morning, and I'm really excited. So let's see how this goes. So I've been meaning to go to a local Chinese restaurant that I know has Chinese BBQ pork. It actually is pretty close to me, but I haven't driven by there in a while, and I'm not really sure what they're doing during COVID. And so we came across the recipe, and I was like, sure, why not? I've got nothing but time on my hands now that I'm working, and I'm pretty hungry all the time, so let me try it out. So here I'm starting to cut the scallions because that's what Mom does at home too, and I thought I'd get it out of the way. Oops. The pork has to marinate for quite a few hours before you cook it in the oven. So after I had bought my pieces of pork from Whole Foods, I washed it and trimmed all of them so that I was able to easily assemble the marinade before I went to work last night. That way the pork would marinate for more than 6 to 8 hours while I was gone. This recipe in particular uses paprika instead of the traditional fermented bean curd. It makes it more accessible for home cooking, and it still gives it that nice reddish color on the outside. This is me transferring the pork onto a baking rack, onto a baking sheet, which allows air to flow all around the meat, giving it crispy all the way around. So check out this leftover marinade and then some of the fatty streaks in the pork also. Okay, so it'll stay in the oven for 20 minutes at first before all of the glazing and the rotating from the oven. And before that, we have to make the glaze. So here I used a sauce pot to simmer the marinade that the pork was hanging out in last night. I was kind of unsure about this part because I left in all the ginger and the garlic slices, the scallions, but I didn't pour it over the roast pork later. I'm assuming it was for the flavor, which did taste great, and that makes sense, but I was slightly confused in the moment, and it worked out well. This recipe uses 2 glazes. The first is just the simmered down marinade that you see me kind of poking at with all the garlic, ginger, and the scallions. And then the other glaze uses some honey to give it a nice sugary outer glaze. That's what makes it kind of like burnt on all the nice edges. Here I am, confused yet again about the garlic and the ginger pieces in my glaze. I ended up scooping it out because I don't want it on my pork burning while it's in the oven. Anyway, I wish I'd used a little more honey in the second glaze to give my pork more of the burnt edges, the burnt parts. Personally, that's my favorite. So if I had known that, I would have done it. But this is a good lesson for next time. So we're just figuring things out for future recipes. After the first 20 minutes in the oven, I used the first marinated glaze to pour it over the roast pork. The recipe calls for a glazing brush, but I did not want to buy that, and I'm always hesitant towards using them because I'm worried that the leftover marinade or the butter that you use won't wash out of the bristles. So I just used a spoon this time, and it worked out all right. Okay, and then it's gonna go back in the oven for another 10 minutes. And now we're gonna flip it again. Okay, this time we're using the honey glaze. And like I said earlier, I wish I'd used more honey to give it more of like that sugary, burnt outer coating, but that's for another time. The little pieces of pork were already looking really good, and I was honestly tempted to take a bite already. And I've been thinking about making this recipe for a couple of weeks. I kept reading it when I had free time at work to really know what I was doing. And so far, I think I'm doing a pretty good job. Here I am just cracking some eggs. I know when Habu makes fried rice, she likes to beat the eggs with the leftover fried rice, so when it's cooking, the egg is already incorporated. But at home, Mom likes to cook the eggs separately beforehand so that there's bigger chunks within the fried rice, kind of like a little bit of scrambled egg in there. And I like that too. So that's what I ended up doing today. The rice is just off to its side while I'm beating the eggs on their own. Technically, this was the last flip and glaze, but of course I wanted more burnt edges, so I decided to glaze everything one last time and put it back in the oven for like 15 more minutes. Like Gong Gong, the burnt fatty edges are my absolute favorite, and so the piece of meat that I got wasn't too fatty, which is a good thing in the long run, but I really do miss the barbecue pork that Gong Gong always gets for us at the corner store, kind of right by Saigon City. I remember Gong Gong used to take me over there. It was so fun. Anyway, I cheated and I took a little bite of this smaller pork piece because it looked really tempting and I couldn't help myself. And already it was so yummy. I unfortunately did not film myself cooking the fried rice this time because I was already super excited about seeing this barbecue pork, and I had already slipped in a couple of slices before even making the fried rice. So, disclaimer, there's no photo evidence of the fried rice. It's all in my belly. But it was really good, and it made me miss Mom's home cooking. It's so good. It's so good. It doesn't taste like... Of course, the ones from like the actual Chinese markets are probably better. This, it's not bad. That pizza has a little bit of fat. It's actually kind of chewy. It's large. I'm sure. Maybe I like cut up all those slices and then kind of like toast it in the toaster oven to like give it that nice like reheat glaze. But I think it's a success. Yay! Okay, fried rice time.